Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sly Cooper Wiki. My name is Shrev, your usual host, and today we are looking at Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Now, we've already looked at these ones, which were the North American releases. Today we're actually looking at the PAL release. Specifically, this one is the United Kingdom release. And first of all, Sly 2 Band of Thieves, this particular version, the PAL version, released on October 29th, 2004. For reference, the North American release released a little over a month earlier on September 14th, 2004. So this copy here came out a month and a half later for whatever reason. Now, right off the bat, we're seeing some very significant differences in the design of the front cover between the two regions. For one thing, the art style used here on this front cover is more of the art style that was used on the Sly Raccoon cover, which is the PAL release of the first game, whereas on the North American variant, the art style you see here is more akin to sort of that comic book style that we've seen in the comics as well as in-game cinematics. So it's a little interesting to see this sort of art style being used for the PAL release, though it does look quite nice and really there's nothing to complain about. Interestingly enough, the silhouette of Sly you see on the bottom here, so hopefully I can get that into focus for you guys. That silhouette actually matches the design of Sly on the Sly Raccoon disc. So I have the Sly Raccoon disc here and hopefully I can show that to you guys, but that silhouette essentially of Sly jumping from that rooftop matches the design of Sly on the Sly Raccoon disc. So I found it a little interesting that artwork from the first game was used here on the second game, though it is quite nice, and really just it's a sort of interesting thing to put at the very bottom of that front cover. Moving to the spine, we see nothing too eventful there. There we go. We have the title of the game, the PlayStation 2 logo, a PAL indicator at the top, as well as the identifier for this game, SCES 52529. It obviously differs from its North American counterpart, which has a completely different identifier of SCUS 97316. Moving to the back is where we see some more significant differences. For one thing, that art style that we saw on the front continues over here, and the dialogue and catchphrases and taglines that are used on this specific cover differ quite a bit from its North American counterpart. So first of all, the headline says "Score Big with Sly and his gang," much different than "Sly and the gang are back." So there's a few similarities here. Obviously, Sly, Bentley, and Murray are referred to as the Master Thief, the Muscle, the Brains, respectively, and that carries over to the PAL version. But the sort of dialogues here, for one thing, there are dialogues here that Sly, Bentley, and Murray sort of say to advertise the game. Sly says, "Behind every great heist is a great team, and with Bentley, Murray, and yours truly, you'll soon be conjuring up elaborate plans to stay out of trouble." Murray says, "And with so many tricks and traps along the way, in far-off places like Cairo, Paris, and Prague, watch out for who's after who."
Yeah, that's strange.
Anyways, Bentley says, "And staying one step ahead of the bad guys is all in the night's work for ingenious thieves like us. We'll be scampering across rooftops, bypassing alarms, and dodging through the shadows in over 80 daring missions." Truth be told, I haven't actually counted the amount of missions in Sly 2, so I can't quite fact check that right now. But I will say that this sort of dialogue interaction isn't quite what I think Sly, Bentley, and Murray would say, but it does get the idea of the game across. The screenshots are very different than what's used in the North American version. Honestly, I can't actually quite tell what's in the Murray screenshot right there. Maybe you might know. Definitely leave a comment down below if you do. And one other interesting thing that you don't actually see on the North American release is a prominent advertisement for the Ratchet & Clank 3 demo. So this version, the PAL version here, does include a demo on disc for Ratchet & Clank 3. For those of you who live in North America, that's the same thing as Ratchet & Clank Up Your Arsenal. It does make a little more sense for this to happen, as this game, the PAL release, did release about 2 to 3 weeks earlier than the PAL release of Ratchet & Clank 3, whereas this game was definitely quite a ways away, so it would make sense that a demo wouldn't quite be on here, but would be better suited to be on this. Another thing I do want to point out is the sort of artwork used here on the bottom. At first glance it does look a little mirrored because obviously Sly is in a mirrored pose between both of the artworks, but it's not quite mirrored, so it does feature that prominent India landmark, but the Eiffel Tower that we see on the left in the North American cover is actually moved over to the right, and then various trees and scenery and foliage is also shifted around a bit. It's not quite symmetric, but it does have the same general artwork here, which I found to be a little interesting. I'm not quite sure why this would be the case, but it does convey, sort of the locations that Sly in the game will be traveling. Additionally, the PAL version does feature a URL, www.sly2game.com, essentially advertising the PAL release of Sly 2. We'll try to have an archive of that in the description down below, so you can go explore that at your own discretion. Other than that, really, there's not too much else to talk about in the back cover, so we'll move into the inside. We'll start off by looking at the discs, and the discs are noticeably different. They feature the same logo, but the artwork is completely different. The artwork on the PAL version of Sly 2 Band of Thieves is essentially the same as the artwork that we saw on the back cover, with Sly in that sort of mirrored pose and Eiffel Tower in the background, as well as some of that India scenery. On the North American release, we see a picture of Sly and the gang in the spotlight, and not really too much else. The manuals are where it gets a little more interesting, because on the right, in the North American release, we do see a Thieves Raccoonus, as most of you might know, but on the left, we actually see a manual that features the front cover of the game, as opposed to a more beaten up Thieves Raccoonus. This difference is a little interesting. I'm not quite sure if they had to make this front cover like this, or if it was just purely a design choice. If you do have any sort of insight into that, let me know in the comments down below. But generally speaking, the manual, while formatted very differently than its North American counterpart, it conveys basically the same information with slightly different wording or slightly different order. There isn't really too much to say here. I believe the Clog Gang dossiers are also identical, but really, I mean, it follows that same sort of dialogue exchange between Sly, Bentley, and Murray that you may remember in the manual, where Bentley's sort of giving Sly and Murray the basics, and Sly is sort of retorting casually. That sort of dialogue does exist in both of these manuals, although delivered a bit differently. One thing I did want to mention with the manual is that if you flip it over to the back, you'll actually get an advertisement for the USB headset for PlayStation 2. Some of you might not know this, but you could use the PlayStation 2 USB headset as a sort of way to either attract guards or lure guards or something like that. So, say for instance you were sneaking around a Sly, you could speak into the headset and a guard would get tipped off and sort of turn around to where that direction might have come from. So it was a cool little trick. I personally haven't tried this because I haven't been able to get my hands on one of these, but it is a cool little trick that is present in Sly 2 and Sly 3, and so it's nice to see that the manual does have an advertisement for that feature. One thing that the PAL version of Sly 2 features, in addition to its advertisement on the back cover, is an actual insert for the Ratchet & Clank 3 demo. So it actually talks about the button code used to access this demo on the title screen of Sly 2, and it just features basically an advertisement for Ratchet & Clank 3 with some screenshots, just a bit of an advertisement, its release month, etc. So I thought that was pretty cool. I didn't think that they'd actually include a full insert about it, but they did. And with all that said, that brings us to the end of this unboxing of the PAL version of Sly 2 Band of Thieves. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button. If you're new here and want to see more unboxings like this one, feel free to subscribe. If you want us to unbox something sooner rather than later, let us know in a comment down below. And additionally, I will try to have scans of the jacket, the sleeve, the disc, as well as all the pages of the manual and that Ratchet 3 insert in the description down below if you are interested in looking at all of this in closer detail. Until then, guys, this has been Shrev of the Sly Cooper Wiki, your #1 resource for anything and everything Sly Cooper. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.